Venezuela is a country with immense energy power, yet politically fragile. For the United States, Venezuela represents three things: oil, a sphere of influence in Latin America, and an ideological front against socialism. What we must always keep in mind is this: as expected, this relationship was never one-sided, but it was never equal either. One side owned the resources, the other held the control. In short, this is a story where the powerful and the wealthy are not the same person. When oil was discovered in Venezuela between the 1900s and 1950s, the country grew richer, but control remained in foreign hands. U.S. companies built the refineries, developed the infrastructure, and gained political influence. As a result, Venezuela's economy became dependent on a single product. There was oil, but others made the decisions. The people became slightly wealthier, yet they never truly took control. Between the 1950s and 1990s, during the Cold War, U.S. policy in Latin America was clear: those who are with us win. U.S.-backed governments were installed in Venezuela, and leftist movements were systematically suppressed. On the surface, people believed they were voting and participating in democracy. In reality, income inequality was growing, and poverty was deepening. People voted, but real choices were never offered. In 1999, Chavez came to power. How did he win? Because he became the voice of the poor. He challenged the elites. He said, "Oil belongs to the people," and launched broad social programs. Was he hope for the people or a threat? One thing is certain: for the United States, Chavez became a threat. For much of the Venezuelan population, he was hope, their voice. But every hope carries the seed of chaos, because the world saw him as a danger. In 2002, a coup attempt took place. Chavez was briefly removed from power, but the people took to the streets and brought him back. This 48-hour episode left the U.S. role officially denied, yet permanently questioned. From that day on, everything changed. The U.S. became the enemy. Venezuela became resistance. That day, the Venezuelan people decided not to trust anyone. In the years that followed, both sides were at fault. U.S. sanctions crippled Venezuela's oil sales, banking system, and state revenues. But the Venezuelan government also made disastrous decisions, and corruption became widespread. The result: hyperinflation, shortages, and mass migration. The crisis was neither solely the fault of the U.S. nor solely Venezuela's. In 2013, Maduro came to power. He was not as charismatic or strong a leader as Chavez. The U.S. refused to recognize the elections and supported Juan Guaidó. Maduro saw this as a coup attempt. This was no longer just a clash between two leaders. It became a system war: capitalism versus socialism. Once again, the people paid the price. More than 7 million people were forced to leave their country. The healthcare system collapsed. The education system fell apart. Hope for the future disappeared. U.S. sanctions did not hit the government, they hit civilians. Political decisions are made at the table, but the cost is paid in the streets. Just as everything was getting worse, the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022 changed everything. Energy demand surged. The U.S. and Venezuela began talking again. A limited thaw started, but distrust remained. Yesterday's enemies could become today's forced partners. This rapprochement aligned with U.S. energy security goals and efforts to reduce dependence on Russian oil. Some U.S. officials held direct talks with Maduro on humanitarian aid, the release of political prisoners, and fair conditions for the 2024 elections. Throughout 2025, especially under the Donald Trump administration, the U.S. adopted an increasingly hardline policy toward Venezuela. Sanctions were imposed on certain Venezuelan companies and oil tankers. In the second half of 2025, Washington officially cut all diplomatic dialogue with Caracas, escalating tensions further. On January 3, 2026, the U.S. military launched a large-scale operation in Venezuela. As a result, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores were captured, brought to the United States, and are set to stand trial in federal court on charges of narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and corruption. In the end, this story isn't over, it's frozen. The future depends on global energy needs, the patience of the people, and shifting geopolitical balances. The story continues. The winners change, but those who suffer remain the same.